Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The downtown cafe was packed that morning. Conversations, laughter, and the clinking of cups mingled in a familiar hubbub. A young man in a suit, Lucas Morel, the director of a technology company, had just entered accompanied by two colleagues. Arrogant and self-assured, he liked to be the center of attention, especially in public. A few tables away, an elderly black man, Mr. Benjamin Carter, sat alone. His clean but worn shirt contrasted with the elegance of the surrounding customers. He held a small notebook in which he wrote calmly, without disturbing anyone. But when Benjamin approached the counter to pay for his coffee, Lucas looked at him with contempt. "Sir, the counter isn't for begging, is it?" he said sarcastically, loud enough for the whole cafe to hear. Laughter erupted. The old man lowered his eyes slightly, without replying. Lucas, pleased to humiliate him, added, "It's crazy, you can't even have a quiet coffee anymore without someone asking for change." A heavy silence suddenly fell. The cashier, visibly uncomfortable, tried to calm the situation. "Sir, he's a regular customer." But Lucas interrupted her, raising his voice. "A regular customer? Come on, you expect me to believe he can afford a cappuccino here?" Benjamin then looked up, disarmingly calm. His voice, deep and measured, cut through Lucas's arrogance. "I'll pay for this gentleman's coffee, and that of his friends." A murmur rippled through the room. Lucas chuckled, thinking it was a joke. But Benjamin pulled a black card from his jacket, an exclusive membership card, reserved for the most prestigious clients of a major international bank. The cashier recognized her immediately and bowed slightly. "Oh. Mr. Carter. I'm sorry, I didn't see you coming." Faces froze. Lucas, pale, realized that he had just ridiculed the very founder of the company that financed his business. Benjamin Carter, once a brilliant engineer, was now the main investor in the fund that held 40% of the shares in Lucas's startup. He simply said calmly, "Have a good day, Mr. Morel. We will certainly have a conversation at the board meeting." The mocking laughter from earlier vanished instantly. Lucas felt his heart sink. The truth had just struck him like a thunderbolt in broad daylight. Sunlight filtered through the large windows of the Le Moderne Café, a place frequented by executives and entrepreneurs in the city center. The place exuded success, open laptops, luxury watches, and hushed business conversations. At the back of the room, 32-year-old Lucas Morel savored his coffee like a trophy. Tailored suit, gleaming Swiss watch, confident smile, everything about him exuded rapid success and a need to be admired. "Look at these people," he said to his colleague Antoine. "Everyone here is fighting to be someone. I already am." Antoine gave an embarrassed laugh. He had known Lucas since university and knew that he liked to impress, even when no one asked him to. That morning, Lucas was supposed to meet a key investor for his company. But before this meeting, he wanted to make a splash, as he put it. He spoke loudly, joked too much, and attracted attention. That's when Benjamin Carter entered. An elderly black man, his back straight despite his age, dressed in a neatly pressed shirt and a wool coat. He greeted the waitress politely and went to sit in a quiet corner by the window. In his hands, a well-worn notebook. He wrote in it slowly, like someone who knows that every word counts. Lucas noticed it immediately. "Look at this, Antoine. He must have gone to the wrong place. Leave him alone, Lucas. He's just living his life." "Are you kidding? This kind of guy always comes looking for charity. Look at his jacket, it looks like it's been through a war." The colleagues laughed. Not maliciously at first, but Lucas added to it, as if he needed the whole cafe to hear. A few minutes later, Benjamin got up to go to the counter. He calmly placed a coin on the table. Lucas seized the opportunity to entertain an audience. "Sir, you know, here we pay by card, not with museum coins," he shouted in a loud voice. Laughter erupted. Benjamin raised his head, his gaze calm, almost benevolent. He did not respond. But Lucas, stung by this silence, insisted. "I bet you're still asking customers for leftovers, aren't you?" A low murmur rippled through the room. Even those who had laughed at first began to feel uneasy. The waitress, Elodie, stepped forward, her face tense. "Sir, please, he hasn't done anything to you." "Oh yes, it made me lose my appetite," Lucas replied, shrugging his shoulders. Without a word, Benjamin then took a small envelope from his jacket. He gently placed it on the counter and said in a calm voice, "I'll pay for my coffee, and for this young man's coffee and his friends." Lucas burst out laughing. "Oh really? With what? Monopoly money?" But the laughter died away immediately when Benjamin took a black metallic card, engraved with his name, out of his pocket, "Mr. Benjamin Carter, Platinum Investor." Silence fell over the cafe. Elodie turned pale, immediately recognizing the customer. "Mr. Carter. I didn't recognize you." All eyes turned to Lucas. His smile faded, his face lost its color. Benjamin stared at him gently. "Young man, words are more valuable than money. You may have just spent more than you have." Then he drank his coffee and went back to his seat, as if nothing had happened. Antoine, pale, whispered, "Lucas, do you know who he is?" "No, and I don't care." "You should. Because it's the man who finances our company." Lucas felt his stomach clench. The world seemed to waver around him. Lucas left the cafe with his heart pounding in his chest. His colleagues were too quiet to speak. The laughter of just a few minutes ago had given way to a cold, heavy silence. Antoine, walking beside him, finally broke the silence. "Lucas, you don't understand. This man, Benjamin Carter, isn't just an investor. He's the Benjamin Carter." "So what?" replied Lucas in a dry tone, even though his voice trembled slightly. "So, without him, our company wouldn't exist. He owns the majority of the Horizon Capital Fund. And Horizon Capital is our main shareholder." Lucas stopped abruptly. Antoine's words hit him in the chest like a punch. A cold wind swept through the street. Cars drove by, passers-by came and went, but for Lucas, everything suddenly seemed to slow down. He had just publicly humiliated the man who could, with a simple phone call, destroy his career. Back at his desk, Lucas tried to concentrate. His hands were trembling. He opened his computer, hoping to lose himself in emails or reports. But he had barely turned on his screen when a notification appeared. "Extraordinary meeting of the Board of Directors, 2:30 p.m. attendance is mandatory." He felt a cold sweat run down the back of his neck. He spent the next few hours pacing, unable to work. Every minute seemed to last an eternity. He kept replaying the scene in the cafe, the looks on the customers' faces, Benjamin Carter's calm tone, that quiet way of telling him he had spent more than he had. At 2:25 p.m., he entered the meeting room. The atmosphere was icy. The executives, all in dark suits, were whispering among themselves. And at the end of the table, seated with a calm demeanor, was Benjamin Carter. Lucas wanted to disappear. Benjamin looked up at him, giving him a slight smile, neither mocking nor cold. A smile that spoke volumes. "I don't need to destroy you. You're already doing that yourself." The chairman of the council spoke. "Mr. Carter wanted to be present to discuss the behavior of certain executives in our company. He felt it was important to remind us that our values must be aligned with respect, humility, and dignity." Lucas felt all eyes turning towards him. Benjamin stood up slowly. "I have nothing to add," he said calmly. "Actions speak for themselves. What I saw today was the image of a man who believes that success gives him the right to belittle others. But I can assure you of one thing: true greatness is not measured by the clothes one wears, but by the way one treats those one considers insignificant." The silence that followed was deafening. Lucas, his eyes fixed on the table, felt a burning shame rising within him. Then Benjamin simply added, Mr. Morel, I will not punish you. Life will take care of that. He left the room without another word, leaving behind an aura of calm and silent power. The president sighed and looked at Lucas. Do you realize what you've just done? This man is financing our future. And you humiliated him in front of witnesses. Lucas had nothing to say. His hands were trembling. That evening, when he returned home, he found his email inbox flooded. Subject: immediate suspension of your duties as general manager. Sitting alone in his modern apartment, Lucas gazed at the city through the windows. He finally understood what Benjamin meant. Words can cost more than money. And that debt, he would pay for a long time. The following days were a long nightmare for Lucas. His suspension had become widely known throughout the company, and rumors were spreading like wildfire. Some pitied him, others rejoiced in silence. He, however, remained cloistered at home, unable to sleep, replaying the cafe scene over and over. That calm gaze. This simple, yet weighty sentence: life will take care of it. And she did indeed take care of it. His phone stopped ringing. His business partners avoided him. Even his closest friends stopped responding to his messages. For the first time, Lucas found himself alone, without applause, without flattery, without power. One morning, unable to bear the silence, he got in his car and drove to the offices of Horizon Capital Group, the investment fund headed by Benjamin Carter. The imposing building stood like a glass fortress. At the reception, the young woman gave him a hesitant look. Do you have an appointment, sir? No, but, tell Mr. Carter that Lucas Morel would like to speak with him. Mr. Carter only sees clients by appointment. He insisted, his voice trembling. Just tell him that. I want to apologize. The receptionist nodded compassionately. I will pass on the message. But I'm not promising you anything. Lucas waited in the lobby for an hour, then two. Finally, the receptionist returned. Mr. Carter will see you, but not here. He'll meet you tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock at the cafe. The modern. The same cafe. The place of his humiliation. The next day, Lucas arrives early. The cafe was almost empty. Benjamin Carter was already there, sitting at the same table, with the same cup of black coffee and the same notebook in his hands. When Lucas entered, the man looked up and smiled gently. Sit down, Lucas. His voice was calm, without animosity. Lucas sat down, nervous, unable to meet her gaze. Mr. Carter, I came to apologize. I was arrogant, disrespectful. I thought my success gave me rights. I was wrong. Benjamin looked at him for a long time, then placed his notebook on the table. You know, young man, a long time ago, I was just like you. Lucas looked up, surprised. Benjamin continued, in a calm voice. I knew poverty, humiliation, and the averted stares. When I finally succeeded, I wanted to prove to everyone that I was someone. And one day, at an airport, I too humiliated a man. An old black man, simple, modest, but wise. He said this to me, a phrase I have never forgotten. You can climb high, son. But never forget where you came from, or the wind from the summit will knock you down. Benjamin was silent for a moment, his eyes staring into space. That man was my father. And it took me years to understand his words. Lucas felt his throat knot. Benjamin calmly continued. I didn't mean to destroy you, Lucas. I wanted to give you a chance to become better. Humiliation builds nothing, but shame can be the beginning of an awakening. Lucas remained silent, tears in his eyes. I do not deserve your leniency. Maybe not today. But you can earn it tomorrow, by changing. Benjamin stood up, put his coat back on, and before leaving, he added. If you seek to rebuild something, begin by serving rather than dominating. Come back here in a week. I will see if you have learned. And he left, leaving Lucas alone with his cold cup, with a mixture of shame, respect, and admiration. That morning, Lucas finally understood that true power came neither from wealth nor status, but of the moral greatness of those who remain humble when everyone is watching them. The days that followed were different. For the first time in a long time, Lucas got up without thinking about money, numbers, or his image. He didn't yet know how to serve, as Benjamin had said, but he knew he had to start somewhere. As it happened, while passing by the cafe again he noticed the old waitress, Elodie, wiping down the tables, tired, under the indifferent gaze of the customers. It was she who, that day, had tried to calm the situation when he had made fun of Benjamin. He entered quietly. "Hello, Elodie. Do you remember me?" She stared at him, suspicious. "Hard to forget. I owe you an apology, too. That day, I was unfair to everyone." She remained silent, her arms crossed. Lucas added, "Is the owner here?" "No. He sold the cafe. Business is bad. We're closing in 2 weeks." Lucas remained thoughtful for a moment, then took out his phone. "What if I bought it back?" Elodie frowned. "Are you kidding?" "No. This cafe taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Maybe I can give back some of what it taught me." 3 weeks later, the Modernit reopened, renovated but faithful to its original charm. Lucas had invested his remaining savings to bring it back to life, but this time, he was not the distant and arrogant boss. He served the customers himself, every morning, with a smile. Regulars were surprised to see him behind the counter, wiping cups, taking orders, cleaning tables. Some snickered, others respected this silent change. But Lucas felt at peace. One day, a young man entered, nervous, wearing worn clothes. He just wanted a glass of water. Lucas offered him a hot sandwich and simply said, "Consider this an invitation. Rest." The young man thanked him, with tears in his eyes. And at that precise moment, Lucas understood what Benjamin had meant by, to serve rather than to dominate. One morning, while he was tidying up the tables, the cafe bell rang. Benjamin Carter enters. Always the same coat, the same calm, the same presence. He observed the room, the smiling customers, the warm atmosphere. Then his gaze fell on Lucas, in an apron, wiping down a counter. A subtle smile appeared on her face. "I see you've learned your lesson." Lucas, visibly moved, replied, "You were right. I discovered more dignity serving coffee than signing a contract." Benjamin nodded slowly. "You've grown up. And this cafe, it's a beautiful way to give back what you've received." Lucas hesitated, then took a file out from under the counter. "Mr. Carter, I know I have a lot to be forgiven for. But I would like you to agree to become a co-owner of this place. I want it to belong also to the one who opened my eyes." Benjamin remained silent for a few seconds, then placed his hand on the young man's shoulder. "Keep it, Lucas. You don't need me anymore. This coffee is your redemption. I found mine a long time ago." Benjamin sat down at a table near the window. Lucas served him a coffee, exactly like the one he had that morning. They hardly spoke. But between them, there was no longer any shame or anger. Only respect. And in the silence, the discreet ticking of the clock seemed to say that sometimes, the greatest victory is the one we win against ourselves. The Coffee the Modernit became, in a few months, a unique place. It was no longer just a place where people came to drink a cappuccino, but a space for calm, listening, and even mutual support. Students, retirees, and weary workers gathered there every morning, greeted by Lucas, now known no longer as the pretentious young CEO, but as the man who serves with his heart. Benjamin Carter often passed by. He always sat in the same place, his notebook open in front of him, observing people with silent kindness. Sometimes he chatted with Lucas, sometimes he simply watched the cafe go by. But that morning, he seemed different. Tired. His hands were trembling slightly when he put down his cup. Lucas noticed it immediately. "Are you all right, Mr. Carter?" Benjamin smiled weakly. We don't live forever, Lucas. But I'm happy to see what you've become before time takes me. Lucas frowned. Don't say that. You still have so much to teach. Benjamin nodded, then took an envelope out of his coat. I have something for you. This cafe is more than your second chance. It's an inheritance. Lucas took it, hesitating. Inside, a notarized document. Benjamin had transferred part of his shares in Horizon Capital, the company he had once run, into his own name. But, why me? Asked Lucas, stunned. Benjamin stared at him intently. Because you remind me of someone. He then took out an old photograph. It showed a young black man in military uniform, alongside a blond boy who was barely 10 years old. Benjamin lightly touched the photo with his fingertips. That man is my best friend. He died 20 years ago. His son is you. Lucas felt the ground give way beneath him. My father, did you know him? Benjamin nodded. More than that. He saved my life one night when all seemed lost. And before he died, he made me promise to watch over you from afar, without ever interfering. I did it in my own way. Until the day life brought us face to face again. Tears welled up in Lucas's eyes. Everything became clear. That kind gaze, that lesson given without anger, that second chance he had never deserved. Benjamin had never wanted to humiliate him. He wanted to wake him up, like a father would with his son. Lucas murmured in a trembling voice. You could have told me sooner. No. You weren't ready to listen. You had to fall to understand the value of what your father passed on to me, dignity. Benjamin stood up slowly, placed a hand on his shoulder and added. This cafe, keep it alive. Make it a place where people feel seen, heard, respected. That's all I ask. Lucas, with tears in his eyes, promised. Benjamin gave her one last smile before leaving the cafe, his steps slow but his gaze serene. A few weeks later, Lucas received a call. Benjamin Carter had passed away peacefully in his sleep. Hundreds of people were present at his funeral, investors, former employees, but also strangers whom Benjamin had helped without ever expecting anything in return. When it was his turn to speak, Lucas took the floor, his voice full of emotion. He taught me that true wealth is not measured in millions, but in changed hearts. And I am living proof of that. The Coffee the Modern it now bears a discreet plaque near the window. In memory of Benjamin Carter, the man who taught me the value of humility. And every morning, when Lucas serves coffee to a stranger, he remembers the day he made fun of a man. Without knowing that he was laughing in front of the man who would one day restore his dignity and give him back a father. Years passed. The Modern it became an iconic place in the neighborhood. Not for its luxury, nor for its prices, but for what it represented, a refuge of humanity. Customers entered with a smile, some to drink a coffee, others simply to talk. On the walls, Lucas had hung black and white photos, anonymous faces, workers, old people, laughing children. And in the center, a single-color image, Benjamin Carter, his notebook open, a calm gaze turned towards the light from the window. Every morning, before opening, Lucas would place a cup of coffee on that table, as if he were still talking to it. He had kept Benjamin's notebook. Inside, he had discovered notes, thoughts, sentences written in a firm hand. Humility does not diminish you. It elevates you above those who think they possess everything. He who learns to serve learns to love. Power does not reside in wealth, but in inner peace. Lucas often reread these words before starting his day. And every time he met a young man who was in a hurry, arrogant, or lost, he took the time to offer him a coffee and tell him his story, not to glorify himself, but to pass on the lesson he himself had received at the cost of his pride. One winter evening, as the snow was falling gently, he closed the cafe later than usual. The light from the streetlights reflected off the shop window, and in that reflection, he thought he saw the silhouette of Benjamin, sitting in his usual place, smiling peacefully. Lucas didn't move, he was simply calm. He murmured, "Thank you, Benjamin. Thanks to you, I learned how to be a man." Then he turned off the lights, leaving behind the scent of hot coffee and the certainty that some beings never truly disappear. They leave an invisible trace in the souls they have awakened. Moral of the story: arrogance may make you shine for a moment, but only humility illuminates forever. For a man's greatness is measured not by what he possesses, but by how he lifts up others.